Warning: the following content may be disturbing to some individuals. Consumer discretion is advised.
Sirens of the Supernatural. Hey out there, listeners. Hey, Lindsay. Welcome, everybody, to Season 2, Episode 2 of Sirens of the Supernatural. We're glad you joined us. We've got a special treat for you tonight, and I'm so excited about what we're going to share. It's some really creepy stories in store for you. And Lindsay, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good. Doing good.
Good.
Yeah, Monday. But
Monday. This is the highlight of my Monday.
Yeah, me too.
It's been rainy and dreary here all day, and
It's been
stuck at work all day. Yeah. I have been looking forward to this since we first started the podcast. This is one of the things that absolutely scares me to my core.
I know you're so excited about this.
And we're gonna bring Ryan in a second, and here he is. Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited about the podcast. Sorry I wasn't able to be on last week's, but we're back fully ready to rock this season. I'm excited. This is going to be a really good episode. You guys have put in a lot of work to this. I'm excited to be part of it.
Yes, we're going to scare you. You don't know what you're in for. So let me ask you, how much do you actually know about doppelgangers?
Personally, from what I've heard, it's just somebody that looks similar to you. It's basically really all I know about it. That there's people out there that's like, "Hey, I saw you at Walmart last week," and you're like, "No, I wasn't."
You're like, "No, you did."
So you hear a lot of that, but that's really all I know about it.
Okay. Well, that's probably what most of our listeners know or think about when they hear the word doppelganger. That's what I used to think about. I didn't know, that there's a whole other realm to this. I watched the movie. Have y'all seen the movie Us from 2019?
Yeah.
The horror movie.
I don't think so.
It kind of it's a good one, isn't it, Lindsay?
It's good, but it's different.
Yeah, it's different. It's weird, but it involves doppelgangers. And the kind of doppelgangers that we're going to be talking about tonight, where most of us think of a doppelganger as a body double or someone who's not related to us but really looks like us. And that's not too far-fetched because, hang on, my phone was ringing. Sorry. That's not too far-fetched because think of how many billions of people are on Earth. Surely somewhere there's someone that looks, almost like your twin, right? But today we're talking about the phenomenon of a phantom self. Okay. So, according to the website liveabout.com, a doppelganger is a shadow self that is thought to accompany every person. It's said that only the owner of the doppelganger can see this phantom self, that it can be, and if they do, it can be a harbinger of death. It says a person's friends or family can sometimes see a doppelganger as well. And the word itself is derived from the German phrase for double walker or double goer, is a more correct translated phrase. So on this side, you have, somebody that might look like you, lives at the same time as you do. People see them, they see you. They're like, hey, like Ryan said, I just saw you at Walmart or whatever. And then you have this concept of a ghostly entity of yourself that if you see it, you'll be like, oh, that means I'm going to die. Oh no, And this says that sometimes other people can see it, and sometimes only the person that is the doppelganger's likeness can see. But then there's another thing called bilocation, and the definition of that is the psychic ability to project an image of yourself in a second location. Now, this is really far out.
That's cool.
This body double is sometimes called a wraith, like, you know, and it's indistinguishable from the real person, but it can interact with others just like the real person would. So if there's a if you projected an image of yourself and it was somewhere else in the house or in the community, people could interact with it, and it could interact with you.
I
Um,
want one. That's so cool.
well, I'm going to preface this episode by saying that these stories that we're going to be sharing have truly creeped me out ever since I heard them. And I only heard about this phenomena a few years ago. On another podcast, they were talking about doppelgangers, and it kind of sucked me in. All right. But stories about this type of entity have been around since ancient Egyptian time. And there are even stories from Norse mythology. So here we go. I'm going to dive into this first story. This is really going to blow your mind. So get ready. All right. Now, this is a story about a French woman, and her name was Emily Seguet, I think is how you say it. And this account was written down by an author named Robert Dale Owen. And he heard the story from the daughter of a friend of his who was a baron. And Julie, the daughter, attended an elite boarding school for girls near a place called Wolmar in what is now Latvia. Okay. So Emily was a teacher at that school that this daughter went to, and it was, I can't pronounce it. I think it's pronounced Pensionat von Neuwickel or something like that. But we'll just say the school for sake of not ruining the French. When she came to the school, Emily was 32 years old. She was attractive, smart, and well liked by all the students and the staff there. All the girls just loved her. However, she had already been employed in 18 different schools in the past 16 years. And soon it became very apparent why. She had a doppelganger, a ghostly twin, and it would make itself visible to others at just random moments. One day in 1845, I forgot to tell y'all this was in the 1800s. Emily was teaching a class like she normally did. She was writing on the board with her back facing the board and away from the class. And out of nowhere, the student said a projection-like entity that looked just like Emily appeared right beside her, and the doppelganger was imitating her movements, but it didn't have any chalk, right? But it was precisely copying every move as she wrote. While everyone else in the class, all the girls, could see this doppelganger, Emily herself could not see it. In fact, she never came across her ghostly twin, which was just as well for her because, you know, we talked about it's considered a bad omen to see your own doppelganger. So during the next year, her doppelganger was seen several more times, according to various stories that were told by the staff and the student body. Her paranormal twin was spotted sitting beside the real Emily, eating silently, imitating Emily while she did her everyday work, and even sitting in class while Emily taught. One time, as Emily was helping one of her students dress up for an event, the doppelganger appeared. The student looked down to suddenly find two Emilys fixing her dress, and she fainted immediately. The girl did. But the most astonishing instance took place, and this was in full view of the entire student body of 42 students and the staff on a summer day in 1846. The students were sitting at long tables working, and they could see Emily in the school's garden. She was gathering flowers. Suddenly, Emily's doppelganger appeared in her chair, while the real Emily could still be seen out the window in the garden. This gives me goosebumps. The girls, now you just think how terrified you would be seeing this. So but some of them were brave enough to get up and approach the doppelganger to try to touch her. And what they found was their hands could go through her, but it felt like they said their hands were going through cobwebs, like a bulk of cobwebs.
Oh, I don't
They,
like that.
I know, they felt an odd resistance in the air too, surrounding the doppelganger. And then the image just slowly vanished. Witnesses also said that whenever they saw Emily's doppelganger, the actual real Emily appeared very worn out. She looked like she was tired and lethargic,
Yeah.
as if the duplicate was part of her spirit that had broken free somehow. Because when it disappeared, the real Emily was back to normal, her energetic, bubbly self. Well, when they asked Emily about this, she was at a loss. She had never seen her ghostly twin, and this was ruining her life basically. She had no control over it at all. And because of the entity, she had been asked to leave all her previous jobs. And even now, this job was in jeopardy too, because seeing two Emilys at once was freaking the students out. It was freaking the parents out, and they were pulling the girls out of the school. So when parents started taking the girls out of school, the principal had to let her go, even though she was a very diligent, capable teacher. After the incident at the garden, Emily said that she had had an urge while she was picking the flowers. She had this urge to go inside the classroom to supervise the kids herself, but she hadn't actually done that. And some people think that this indicates the doppelganger maybe was a reflection of the kind of teacher Emily wanted to be, doing multiple things at once. Like she had this in her mind, she wished she could be two places at once. And some people have a theory that the doppelganger came out to do the tasks that Emily herself was doing in an alternate universe where she had made a different choice from that of the real world. So,
That's kind of like what I was thinking. Like, this whole doppelganger where her other self was appearing randomly, it seems almost like alternate universe.
yeah, it
Like,
does.
whenever you feel deja vu, I always kind of thought, some people say it's because you've already done this before, but I always kind of thought, like, what if it was because your multiple selves in other universes have like matched up for a second? And
Oh,
I wonder if, like, if that's a true thing and there are other alternate universes. I wonder if that's what it was, and if that's like an explanation for other ghost sightings, is just
yeah,
crossing over from other universes.
that's very interesting
Because I
theory.
mean, how else would you explain it? Maybe she just has like very strong residual energy that she's like casting to other places, and that's why she's getting tired and she just doesn't even know she's doing it or realize
Right.
that it's happening at all. That's so crazy.
It is
I
like,
would have loved to be in that classroom because I would have gone up there
Yeah.
and like started
yeah,
poking.
you would have.
Yeah,
And
that's
I
so
agree with
crazy.
Lindsay. I mean, alternate universes, alternate realities, levels of energy. It sounds like astral projection because where she
Yeah,
gets weak whenever it appears.
Mhm.
Uh, it's very interesting. You don't really know what it would be. But like I said, sometimes your subconscious and your energy level and where your area of focus is, she may have been astral projecting without realizing it. Or, I
Yes.
totally agree with Lindsay because whenever you were speaking, Rhonda, telling the story, that's kind of the first thing that popped through my mind. I mean, we're of similar thought
Mhm.
process. Otherwise, we really wouldn't be on here together. So, yeah, I totally agree with you guys.
yeah,
And
that's great.
last week we talked with Julie Starr about auras around a
Mm-hmm.
person and how that's kind of our electromagnetic field. And I wondered when I was researching this, that came to mind, what we were discussing last week. And I thought, wow, if some people's psychic ability, could be strong enough to project like not just an aura, but their whole like
Their
essence of
entire self. Yeah,
themselves. Yeah. outwardly, and didn't even realize she was doing it. That's what I feel sorry for Emily.
Me too. That sucks to get fired from all
Yeah.
those jobs, even though you're great at what you do. It's just everybody else
Mhm.
is terrified.
Yeah, and I wondered what happened to her, but I couldn't
Yeah.
find any information about what might have happened to her later because here she was a young woman. She was 32, and and she just basically was having her life ruined by her ghostly twin. So that story really, it gives me the
I do
heebie-jeebies.
wonder. Like I've heard parts of that story before,
Mhm.
but it makes me want to do like deep dive research into her life and see like what did that always happen to her even when she was a little kid? Did
Oh
she have
yeah.
anybody else in her family that it happened to? And I do wonder like what happened to her after they
Mhm.
fired her after she left the job.
Yeah, me too. I didn't think about prior to that, like what her life was like, or if she can you imagine if that happened when she was a kid, she wouldn't have had any friends,
Yeah.
basically. I mean,
Or like me like what if she was supposed to have been a twin or something
mhm,
happened like in the womb where the other
yeah,
twin dissolved or like whatever happens to it and that was just a manifestation of another life that could have been associated with her.
that's another good theory. That's an
I'm
interesting
really curious
theory.
about this one, but I feel like because it was so long ago and it's
Mhm,
not like she was anybody famous or
right.
this probably all came out like you said somebody else wrote it down after all this
Mhm.
happened. There just probably isn't a lot about her.
Right. And I think that actually the author didn't hear the story until years later after
Yeah.
the baron's daughter had grown up and basically had her own family and was telling him about it. Um, so we've tossed around some theories, and that time alternate universe alternate dimension theory, there's another case out there that involves doppelgangers, and this might have had something to do with time or dimensional shifts. So there was an 18th century German poet named Johann Wolfgang von Goethe, and he wrote this story about confronting his own doppelganger in his autobiography. In English translated, Poetry and Truth was the name of his autobiography. And this is really a strange story too. In his account, he described he was traveling to the city of Drusenheim, and he was going there to visit a young woman named Frederique, with whom he was having an affair, by the way. As he was walking along, he was lost in thought and very emotional, and he looked up to see a man dressed in a gray suit trimmed in gold who appeared just briefly in his line of vision and then vanished. 8 years later, Goethe was again traveling the same road to visit the same woman, and he realized he was wearing the very gray suit trimmed in gold that he had seen on the man 8 years earlier. And that memory, he wrote, later comforted him after his young love he and his young love parted at the end of that visit. But he believed that he 8 years later or 8 years before had seen himself walking on the same road, but the himself from 8 years in the future. Is that not weird?
That is so crazy. And I feel like that reminds me so much of, and I think it was on Real Life Ghost Stories podcast with Emma, that
Uh-huh.
she had told a story one time. Somebody sent a story in and they were telling about when they were a kid, they had went into their kitchen and they saw this person standing there and then they vanished. And then later on in their life, when they were like a lot older, because this person was a lot older than them, they went into the kitchen and saw a child standing there and they realized they were like, oh my god, like I was the ghost that I saw when I was a kid. Isn't that crazy? And that reminds me so much of that story. I always thought that was the wildest thing.
Yeah, that is very freaky. That
The
reminds
time
me of
slip.
that first season of The Haunting of Hill House, when
Mm-hmm.
the little girl, she kept seeing the crooked necked
Bent
woman.
neck, bent neck lady. Yeah.
Yeah, bent neck lady, and it ended up, well, we won't give it away, but
Even
anyway,
though that show's like years old, but yeah,
yes,
that's so crazy. Like time slips,
uh-huh,
they
time
get
slip,
me.
yeah,
They get me.
and I guess he told that for the truth and really truly believed it. Well, a few centuries before Emily had her experiences, and nearly a century before Goethe had his experience, there was an English poet named John Donne, and he claimed to have been visited by his wife's doppelganger while he was in Paris. Now he was away on business in Paris, and she was back home. He said her doppelganger appeared to him holding a newborn baby. Now his wife was pregnant at the time. Okay, but he said the doppelganger was very sad. It had a very sad countenance and sad, like just emotional, heavy energy in the air that he felt when he saw that. Then later he found out that the time that he had seen this apparition, his wife had given birth to their stillborn child. So that is a sad one, a very sad
Yeah,
one.
like that. That's really creepy.
And you remember we talked about bilocation too. Like,
Yeah.
now that's not seeing yourself in the future or a time slip thing. That's like, I'm here, but at the same time, I'm down at the grocery
Somewhere
store,
else, yeah.
Okay, so there's a very unusual story that seems to verify the phenomenon of bilocation. And it takes place in the 1600s, okay? So there was a mission in what is now New Mexico. And it was like a Catholic mission there. And Father Alonso de Benavides encountered Hamano natives that lived in that area. And even though they had never, ever met Spaniards, now the Spanish were the ones who went in and established these missions in the New Mexico area. These natives carried crosses. They observed Roman Catholic rituals. They knew Catholic liturgy in their native tongue. The natives, when he asked, how do you all know this? They told him they had been instructed in Christianity by a lady dressed in blue who came among them for many years and taught them this whole new religion in their own language. So when he got back to Spain, this priest, his investigation led him to Agreda, Spain, to Sister Mary of Jesus. And this is the story that she told him. She said she converted the North American natives, not in body, but in spirit. She said that at a certain point, she started falling into these trances, and what we call them are cataleptic trances. And after she would go into these trances, she would dream dreams where she was carried to a strange wild land she'd never seen. But while she was there, she taught the gospel to the people. And as proof of her claim, she was able to tell the priest very descriptive, um, detailed what they wore, what the natives wore, including what they looked like, their appearance, their clothing, their customs. She couldn't have learned any of that through research because these Native Americans had just been
Yeah, there
discovered,
was
really.
none, yeah.
So, how did she learn their language? He wanted to know, how did you learn their language? She said, I didn't learn their language. I simply spoke to them, and God let us understand each other. And I thought, that is the strangest story of bilocation I've ever heard. They described her to a T. She described them to a T. They knew all this, here's a priest. He's set up this mission. He's going to teach them, about Christianity. They already knew all about it. And they had made crosses. She had taught them, like, how to make crosses, and they made those and they were wearing them when he first came across them. So I don't know how you explain something like that. I really don't. I mean, that had to be
See,
a God thing.
this is why I like this podcast, because make it make sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like, somebody please write in and give me a scientific explanation. Like, how did this happen? Because there's no way that she, as a nun, in what year was it?
1622.
There's no way that she, as a female, much less a nun, could travel all the way over there without a ship full of other people, without all these other people knowing that this happened and spreading this word, like, oh, we found these Native Americans and Sister Mary like taught them all this stuff. People would have known about this. But
And
yet
it wasn't
here
like
she
we
is
had
like, no, I went over there in spirit and taught them all this. What? How?
I know. Like today, we have we can connect with someone around the world, and learn about all this stuff. You just have to Google it. But she didn't have any of that.
Literally how? Like, somebody please write in and tell us. Make it make sense, because that is something you just can't explain.
We do research, but sometimes we end up with more questions than answers.
Yeah,
because you go down this rabbit trail and you're like, I never even, it just blowing my mind. And I've got one more story to share. And this happened in like the 1880s. And this was a story of French novelist, and I hope I say his name right, Guy de Maupassant. He wrote a short story about his doppelganger after he had a disturbing experience in 1889. While he was writing, he claimed that his body double entered the study, sat down beside him, and began dictating the story he was in the process of writing. So, in the story he wrote, the narrative is told by a young man who's convinced he's going crazy after having glimpsed what appeared to be his body double. De Maupassant claimed to have had numerous encounters with his doppelganger, and get this, at the end of his life, he was committed to a mental institution following a suicide attempt in 1892. So 1889 to 1892. And then in 1893, he died. Now, some physicians have suggested that his visions of a body double may have been linked to a mental illness that was caused by syphilis, which he contracted as a young man. So we don't know what we don't know what all that was about, but evidently, I guess syphilis can cause some pretty bad mental problems. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So those were some of the stories that I found. And before we move on to some modern day ones, I want to get more of Ryan's perspective. And then Lindsay's going to share a few more historical ones. But we do have some modern day ones for you that you are going to want to hear. So, Ryan, what do you think about this so far? Is this like mind blowing stuff?
It is. It makes you wonder, just how much stuff is going on out there. You can be, you always hear, well, you can't be two places at once. Well, why not? You guys, there may be people accused of things that, might not have been them, could have been somebody that looked like them, or, just, it's interesting, there's so much stuff out there. And like you said, it just, once you start going down the rabbit hole, you don't know what it is. You don't know if it's astral projecting. You don't know if it's alternative universes. You don't know if it's a certain use of energy or auras, things like that. So again, like Lindsay and you have said, if any of our listeners are out there and they have any experience with this, or if they have any knowledge or anything like that, write in, let us know. We enjoy taking reader stories. You want to hear real facts, real things. That's why we do this.
Yeah.
It's to spread knowledge and to spread interest on things out there that are not common, that you don't think about, but are real.
Can you imagine?
Also, fun fact, there's the internet's out there, and once you upload something, it's there.
Yeah.
So, I've heard of websites, out there, and I don't really know the exact name or URLs or anything like that. But I heard there's websites out there that you can upload a selfie, and you can upload it onto that site, and it will generate and search for anything that looks similar, so you can find your own doppelganger.
Oh, wow.
From anybody that has actually uploaded the selfie online. And
Yeah.
there's millions of people that do that every time. You can't go anywhere without somebody uploading a selfie,
Right.
So if anybody has experience with that or have done anything like that, we would love to hear that too.
Yeah, definitely. That's wild.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, can you imagine if something like with Emily were to happen today, and like a teacher had a doppelganger that just appeared in the classroom? How many times this video would be uploaded to TikTok? Like, it would go
Yes,
viral
it would.
if
It
something
would.
like that actually happened today. Like, those
Yeah.
kids would have their phones
And like within a
out.
matter of minutes,
Yeah.
like somebody across the world has
Oh,
seen
yeah.
it. You know,
Like, have
everybody's
you guys
talking.
seen this? My teacher has a doppelganger.
Get double the pay. I was there
Crazy.
doing twice the work.
Yeah.
Sometimes
give me
I
a
wish
raise.
I had. Well, I used to wish I had a dog. You know, you have so much work. Sometimes you wish there were two of you to do the work, and now I'm like, no.
That last one that you said about him, like trying to write the story, and here comes his doppelganger in there, that gave me chills. I did not like that at all.
I don't
did
like
not
it
like
either.
that one.
Oh,
That freaked me out.
me too.
Okay, so now I think we're gonna go into more like famous historical experiences, and there are a lot of like royal, royalty experiences, I guess, because they were so influential and they would be more well known. But it almost makes you wonder how many of these experiences have been happening just by completely normal people that never really got to spread their stories. Like, this could be a lot more common than we really think because we just haven't heard of all the other stories.
Yeah,
But
that's true.
anyways, let's move on. So we have a few experiences from royalty, like Elizabeth I. And she was the daughter of Henry VIII and the beheaded Anne Boleyn, who ruled England from late 1558 to early 1603. So she was referred to as the Virgin Queen because she defied convention by refusing to marry or bear an heir. And I always heard it's because she said she would always tell people that she was married to England. So she didn't want to have any other relationships because she was so dedicated. She was married to her country. So when death sought Elizabeth out, it allegedly gave her a preview of its coming by way of a dead doppelganger. According to history, Elizabeth encountered her own person lying in state like a corpse in her chambers. The doppelganger was described as pallid, shivered, and wan, and though Elizabeth was level-headed and not prone to fantasies, she seemed to know this strange sight meant something ill-fated was in store. Only a few days later, Queen Elizabeth I, aged 69 and monarch of 44 years, was dead in actuality.
Ooh.
Spooky.
You know, you hear a
Crazy.
lot about Queen Elizabeth, but that story doesn't come up as much.
No,
That's
other than today, that's probably the first story that I've heard about her that I've never heard before, because she's a pretty popular historical figure, and so there's a lot of stories out there about her, but I'd never heard of that one before, ever. That's spooky. Very spooky. Okay, so next we have Catherine the Great, who ruled Russia from 1762 to 1796. And she had a strange encounter with her creepy double as well. According to the account, as shared by the Confessionals podcast blog and many other sources, the story goes that Catherine was in her bedroom when some troubled servants came to tell her they had just seen the Empress entering the throne room, even though she'd been lying in her bed at the exact same moment. The Empress went directly to the room to investigate the servants' claims, and once there, Catherine encountered a second version of herself, seated calmly on the throne. Ever formidable, the real Catherine ordered her guards to fire on the spectral queen.
What?
Presumably, the bullets had no effect and her doppelganger disappeared with no further recurrences. But not long after this event, Catherine the Great collapsed and suffered a stroke. Within hours, she became comatose, and by the evening following the stroke, her reign permanently ended. Which just goes along with the whole, if you see your doppelganger in real life, you're gonna die.
Ooh.
Well, also, if I seen that version of myself, me being me in the way I think, I'm like, okay, I'm not going to kill myself because if I die that way, I'm going to die now. And I know I think
Yeah.
weird, but I'm just like, no, it's freaky, but don't hurt it. Just
Yeah.
follow it. See what it's doing.
Yeah, because like, what if there is some kind of invisible string connection between the two of you?
Yes.
It's terrifying, and like, don't come near me. I don't want to see you. But I'm also gonna mind my own business and just not mess with you.
But no, she didn't even have a second thought. She was like,
She's like,
servants, come shoot it.
get her. She was like, go get her. She's in my seat. You
If
gotta go.
I ever came across my own doppelganger, I think I would die because it would scare me to death.
Yeah, I would have a heart attack right there.
Oh,
I would
yeah.
simply pass away.
I would have a lot of questions.
But I've never.
Yeah.
Now we haven't come across. Well, yeah, I guess we have come across some that could talk because the author has dictated the story to him. Yeah, weird.
Which makes you wonder if he's coming in there and he's like, okay, write this down. If it was me, I'd be like, okay, but before I write this down, can we just have a quick discussion about what the hell is happening? Just keep it between us, but like, we gotta talk.
Yeah, off the record.
Crazy. Yeah, off the record. What the hell's going on?
Like, where are you from? You from the future? Is there something you want to tell me?
Yeah.
Should I not cross the street tomorrow? You got the lottery numbers,
Oh, he said
Lottery
future.
numbers?
That reminded me of those Back to the Future movies, where he goes back and forth in time and runs into various versions of himself. Oh,
yeah.
Oh, Lord.
Okay. So up next, we have somebody that we've probably all heard about. President Abraham Lincoln.
Ah.
Our 16th president and his wife, Mary Todd Lincoln, shared a keen interest in spiritualism and the supernatural. So after losing 2 of their young children, Mary frequently invited mediums to the White House to hold seances, some of which were attended by Lincoln himself. And Lincoln believed in the power of dreams to predict the future. So once he dreamed that he walked through several rooms of the White House to the sound of crying before discovering a dead, shrouded body lying in state. Now, Dream Lincoln asked a nearby soldier to whom the body belonged, and the soldier replied it was the president murdered by an assassin. Mm-hmm. Lincoln also encountered what he believed to be another ill omen regarding his fate when he glimpsed his deathly pale doppelganger looking at him from a mirror. One of Lincoln's associates recounted the story the president allegedly told him on November 9th, 1864. So here's what Lincoln said. It was just after my election in 1860 when the news had been coming in thick and fast all day and there had been a great hurrah, boys, so that I was well tired out and went home to rest, throwing myself down on a lounge in my chamber. Opposite where I lay was a bureau with a swinging glass upon it, and looking in the glass, I saw myself reflected nearly at full length, but my face, I noticed, had 2 separate and distinct images. The tip of the nose of one being about 3 inches from the tip of the other. I was a little bothered, perhaps startled, and got up and looked in the glass, but the illusion vanished. On lying down again, I saw it a second time, plainer, if possible, than before. And then I noticed that one of the faces was a little paler, say 5 shades, than the other. I got up, and the thing melted away, and I went off, and in the excitement of the hour forgot all about it. Nearly, but not quite, for the thing would once in a while come up and give me a little pang as if something uncomfortable had happened. When I went home again that night, I told my wife about it, and a few days afterward, I made the experiment again, when, with a laugh, sure enough, the thing came back again. But I never succeeded in bringing the ghost back after that, though I once tried very industriously to show it to my wife, who was somewhat worried about it. She thought it was a sign that I was to be elected to a second term of office, and that the paleness of one of the faces was an omen that I should not see life through the last term.
Ooh.
I don't like
it. Wow.
I don't like it. It's kind of hard. Like, I know the story that he allegedly said was very descriptive, but it's also kind of hard for me to see it in my head, like in my head, all I see is just him looking at a reflection of himself in the mirror.
Uh-huh.
But that's apparently not what it really was.
Right.
That's just, that's
I
creepy.
mean, just think if you were getting ready for work or what have you, just looking in your mirror and another face appeared right beside you.
I'm not even lying to you. So how I have my setup is like, I just have my iPad sitting on my vanity and I've got a huge mirror like all above me. If I looked up and saw somebody else or like another me standing behind me in the mirror, I would pass away. Like I would pass away live on the podcast. There would be no more me in the podcast because I'll be gone. That's one of the creepiest things that I could imagine.
Mm-hmm. Which reminds me, you remember that movie Mirrors? And it had Kiefer Sutherland was in that, and that creepy little boy, and he would see his like he'd be sitting in front of the mirror, and he'd go somewhere else, and his reflection is still sitting there.
The one thing that I remember most from that movie was the girl when she was sitting in the bathtub, and she had like she was in front of the mirror, and she went to go get in the bathtub, but her doppelganger stayed in the mirror and like ripped her jaw off. Remember, she was in the bathtub and her face started, and she just ripped her entire jaw off.
Ron, you need to watch this movie. It's called Mirrors.
It's really scary. I don't think it gets enough hype. It's scary.
It is a scary movie.
Like I said, the mirrors are, I know off topic, but I've always heard like mirrors or something like portals or ways for alternate universes and things like that. So, I mean, if there are doppelgangers out there, which of course, there's evidence of something, and there's alternate universes, then that would be a perfect way for them to meet.
Yeah. And you remember when we were talking back in season 1, we did that death rituals episode, and we were talking about how some cultures, when someone dies, they cover all the mirrors or all the reflective surfaces in the house because they believe if the spirit, the spirit will hang around, and that might be a way that they can come back. They think they can come back.
Or get caught in the mirror.
Yes.
And just be trapped there forever.
Yeah.
Which reminds me of the, that haunted mirror in Zach Bagans' museum, Bela Lugosi. He was convinced his mirror was haunted. And I was watching when he had his show about his museum. And he would, like, there's cameras in every room. And he was showing this one segment where this group had gone in. And the mirror's set up. And there's, like, other stuff in the room, too. But this one person went up and, like, looked in the mirror, and they give you a warning that like if you look in the mirror it's cursed or haunted or whatever, and the person was looking in the mirror and then just passed out, just fell back and hit their head on the floor. And I mean, it's Zach Bagans, so that could have been like an actor that's like, oh, I saw a ghost in there, but it was still creepy. It was very creepy.
What did the person say they saw?
I don't remember if they said they saw anything or they remembered what happened, because they were kind of out of it when they came back too, but they, I think, had to end up calling like an ambulance or something to come get this person, which apparently is not an odd or rare occurrence at this museum.
Ryan, have you been there too?
No, I've wanted to go to Zach Bagans' museum. I also want to go to the Warren Museum in Connecticut. They've got a lot of artifacts and haunted items like that. Yes. And, Lindsay, since you know about the one about Zach Bagans, if you've got a vacation coming up, why don't you go check it out and come back and let us know?
If I had the money, I would be there right now. Like, I would be at the museum. I think Courtney, my sister, I think when they went to Vegas, they went to the
did they?
I'm pretty sure she said they did, because I was so jealous. I was like,
we'll have to ask her.
Yeah.
That is cool.
But that's on my bucket list. I would love to go there to one in Connecticut. So maybe that's something we can do on a future episode. We can go contact a few people, and maybe see if we can make that happen.
And Salem is on the way, right?
Now, I've been to Salem. Salem is awesome, and they've got a lot of really historical things there.
Yeah. Definitely want to go. Bucket list. Yep.
But like if we go, I would want to stay in one of the more haunted like hotels there. So we would have to book like years in advance, because they're booked out like so long. Yeah, because it's so popular to go stay there, especially around Halloween. It's like booked up for years in advance.
Oh wow!
So yeah, we
Maybe
gotta
we is just picking off really weird off
like we'll
time.
go on summer or something.
Yeah.
Okay, so moving on. Now instead of going the historical route, we're gonna jump ahead to some modern day stories that we've pulled from Reddit.
And before you share, I just have to say this. You get on Reddit and you will find hundreds and hundreds of stories about doppelgangers. Um, I couldn't believe it, and I wanted to share more, but we picked out some of the best ones to share with you, the ones that freaked us out. But there were so many people. Once one person shared, it was like a floodgates open.
Yeah,
Okay,
everybody's
so
got
there
stories.
has to be something to this,
Has to
in
be.
my opinion. Okay, go ahead.
Okay.
Lynn.
So, and this is just coming straight from Reddit. This person says, I had a friend years ago who worked in a funeral home. One day after work, her mom and grandmother watched my friend walk in through the front door of their house and angrily march upstairs without saying a word, slamming her bedroom door. Concerned, they followed her upstairs to the second floor to see what was wrong. They knocked, but no reply. They opened the door. The room was empty, nowhere to hide, and no way she could have left through the window. They went back downstairs, baffled and shaken. 20 minutes later, my friend came home for real and was asked by them if she had come home and left again. She said no, she had just left work and came straight home.
Ooh.
I
What do
got
you
the
think? My
chills.
location? What did you say?
It freaks me out so bad because, like, in this instance, this is somebody that they've known their entire life and they know her like emotions and okay, she's absolutely not having a good day, let's go check on her, and they watch her stomp upstairs and it's somebody you've known your whole life and you go up there and they're not there, and then they get home and they're like, no, I just got home right now. What do you do?
I don't know.
I would be so scared the rest of forever.
As the family or as the person with the doppelganger?
Both.
Both.
If I was the mom or grandma, whoever it was, every single other time that I saw this person, I would be triple checking. I'd be like, okay, so you're here, we're on the same page, we're both here right now. And then like 10 minutes later, I'd be like, okay, so we're still you're still the real one, right? Like I would never trust ever again that it wasn't the creepy one.
You'd be
Right.
walking up, pinching them. Be like, ow,
Yeah, I'd be
Yes.
like,
do that every time you see
you're the
me.
real one, right? I'd be like
Be-
poking them to make sure that
Yes.
they were real. My hand wasn't going through cobwebs trying to get in there. I don't like that.
Now, and this is one instance that the doppelganger actually physically made noise, slammed a door, stomped up the
Stomped
stairs.
up the stairs. Like that's a lot of
Yes.
energy.
That's physically, I mean, yeah. I don't see unless, yeah.
Like that takes a lot of energy just for like a normal regular person to get mad enough that they're like driving home, like they take the whole trip and they're still so mad when they get home they're gonna stomp up the stairs and slam the door. Just for a regular person, that takes energy to do, much less a doppelganger or a ghost. Like that has to be that's a ghost. Like that's a powerful ghost.
Yeah,
That's a lot of energy. Okay, I think I have one more. Yeah, I think I've got one more. This person says, around 15 years ago, when both of my kids were toddlers, I was putting them to bed one night and my son was adamant that he wear his favorite red race car pajamas. I happily obliged, helped him change into them, and tucked him into bed. Then I sat down at my kitchen table with a friend who had come over to chat and catch up. The way that my apartment was set up, you could see my kid's bedroom doorway from the kitchen table. My friend and I were talking for a while before we were suddenly interrupted by the sound of my son screaming. We both turned and looked at the bedroom doorway and saw my son standing there, loudly crying, shrieking, and wearing his green pajamas with airplanes on them. Everything inside of me was screaming that this was wrong. The hair on the back of my neck stood on end and a cold shiver shot down my spine. My friend and I wordlessly stared at each other for a second. We both knew that my son couldn't change his pajamas by himself yet. We looked back at the doorway and my son was gone. We ran to the bedroom and found him tucked in bed, still sleeping peacefully in his red race car pajamas. My friend asked me if I saw him standing there in his green airplane pajamas, and I confirmed that I had. My friend freaked out and left. I slept on my kids' bedroom floor that night to make sure nothing happened to them. My friend and I still talk about it to this day. It's one of the craziest things that's ever happened to me. My son, of course, doesn't remember any of it, but he loves hearing the story of how his doppelganger scared the crap out of us.
Oh my gosh.
See, and that just like, to me, sounds like another instance of like alternate universe. Like maybe that's what could have happened if she decided not to change him into his red pajamas and put him in his green airplane pajamas instead. Like maybe he would have woken up and gotten upset because he wasn't in his favorite pajamas and started crying and screaming. Like he's a toddler. That's what they do. They can't really regulate their emotions. So like what if in an alternate universe that's what would have happened? And she just kind of glimpsed that. Maybe the veil was thinner or something. I don't know. That's crazy.
And it's wild because here we have another, in both those stories that you shared, it wasn't just one person, who saw it. It was the people that were
Both
there
of them.
present.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's creepy. What do you think about that, Ryan?
Yeah,
Creepy
that's
kids.
something else. Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
I don't know what to say.
Yep, yep.
It's just that's crazy.
All right. Well, I have one more creepy current day story. This one, every time I think about it or I read about it or talk about it, gives me the shivers. Okay. And it will make you not want to get up and go to the bathroom at night.
Oh, great. Because I woke up literally like 2:40 this
Uh,
morning. I was like, oh, I gotta pee. And I have to go all the way downstairs
yeah.
to get to the bathroom. But I'm not going to like worry about turning the lights on. I probably will now after I hear the story.
Okay. All right. So get ready. Buckle your seatbelts.
I almost
All
don't want to now.
right.
Like, oh, God.
I saved the best. Well, one of the best for last. We've had some really good
Yeah, this
stories.
has been creepy.
Okay, now I found this on ranker.com. I didn't find this on Reddit.
Okay.
I had heard this story or part of this story before, and so I went and I looked and looked and looked till I found it. But this is a lady that's telling this story. She says, late at night, I usually go to the bathroom multiple times. But for the past 4 days, every time I go to leave the bathroom, I can see myself still standing in the mirror from the corner of my eye. It's like the other me is watching me leave the bathroom. It terrifies me to the point where I almost run out without looking directly at the mirror. Now, I never told my husband about it because I didn't want to acknowledge it out loud. Earlier today, I was taking a nap in our bed while he sat in the chair next to the bed watching TV. When I woke up, he told me he had seen me sit up and crawl backwards to the edge of the bed and
Hell no.
stand up in the front of our bedroom door.
No.
From the corner of his eye, he saw this. He thought it was weird because, listen, he thought it was weird because I'm in the last month of my pregnancy and can't really move well without it hurting. So he tried talking to me. When I didn't answer, he looked at the door to find me not standing there and still sleeping in bed. I got really creeped out and finally told him about what I have been seeing in the bathroom. He thought it was creepy as well, but he didn't want to talk about it anymore because he thinks it will give whatever this is power or energy. I have no idea what it wants or why we have both seen it. Now, oh, if I was him, okay, and I'm sitting in this chair and I'm watching TV, I'm focused on the TV, but I see movement out of the corner of my eye, and my pregnant, almost ready to give birth wife is crawling backwards to the head of the bed. I would think, wait, what's going on here?
I'm calling a preacher. That reminds me of the spider walk off The Exorcist. That freaks me out. So
Yeah.
that's a no-go. I'd be on the phone. I'd be like, look, you got to come get your daughter. Something's crazy going on with her. She's walking backwards on her hands.
Oh my gosh. Oh, the first time I heard that, I was just like, oh, I can't even. And and that explains why she was getting up to go to the bathroom multiple times at night, because I remember when I was expecting, I would get up. But the older you get, the more you get up to go to the bathroom at night. And I'm telling you what, I have to walk past a mirror in and coming back out. And you know what? I don't look in the mirror. We have a nightlight, and
Never
I don't
again.
look
I
in the
would
mirror.
never look at myself in the mirror ever again. I'm putting on my makeup blind. I'm getting rid of all the mirrors in my house. Okay, if I was this man and I'm sitting there watching TV and out of the corner of my eye I see this happening, do you know what I'm doing? My ass is getting up and I'm walking out of I'm minding my business.
Yeah.
This is where my life motto comes in. Mind your business.
Business.
I'm not messing with that. I'm not asking her about it. I'm not turning my head to look at it. I'm gonna go to the store or something.
Yeah.
I'm gonna go to the store and I'm gonna get some wine and then I'm gonna come home and I'll probably
Yeah.
feel a lot better.
And you know how sometimes it takes your brain a minute to process what's going on? Like when he realized after he spoke to it, okay?
The fact
And
that he even spoke to it.
And yeah.
Heart attack right there.
And he turned his head and saw her asleep, sound asleep on the bed. That's when I would have gotten the real heebie-jeebies, like, and then he told her about it. I don't know if I would have that'd put me in labor,
Yeah.
if I was expecting, but he did. He told her about it, and then, and then he didn't want to talk about it anymore after she told him what was going on with her. I'd be like,
okay, I'm done, and I might also be getting a divorce because
Yeah.
that's terrifying. Like that's the scariest thing I've ever heard. Do you think it means that like maybe their baby's evil?
Oh, I don't know. That's a movie script.
Yeah, somebody needs to write this movie, just like a whole screenplay based off of this one scene.
Based off this.
It would make millions of dollars because that is the scariest thing I've ever heard.
Ryan, you got to write that script.
And like the fact that she's going to like the bathroom at night and her reflection is staying in the mirror. Yeah. That is like one of my like low-key biggest fears. Yeah. Is that my reflection will be in the mirror and will just be there and not me.
Yeah.
Like it's still me, but it's not moving with me.
Exactly.
I don't like
there's
that.
There's another movie. Okay, we've talked about the movie Mirrors. We've talked about the movie Us. There is another movie about a teenager. Do you remember what that name of that movie is, Lindsay? She's a teenager and she's like really soft-spoken and shy and Little Miss Perfect. And one night she's in her bathroom and she sees her doppelganger and it starts communicating with her. And you can't tell if it's like, is this like really supernatural? Are they wanting us to think it's supernatural, or are they wanting us to think it's mental illness? And you cannot tell. But her doppelganger wants out of the mirror so that she can take her over. And so that's what happens. And it is freaky. It's not a very new movie.
I don't think I've seen that.
It's not really old either. I'll see if I can find the name of it.
Familiar to me. I don't think
we need to post the names of these movies on our socials so that people can watch them.
I'm gonna have nightmares tonight. Like I'm not gonna be able to go to sleep because I'm gonna be laying in bed. I'm gonna be like, what if I have to get up to pee? And then Brian sees me like crawling backwards in the bed when I'm not in there.
Well, you got the stairs behind you. That looks, that's kind of creepy in itself. So
my bedroom.
Yeah, it makes Ryan think of the movie Halloween, in the stairs.
The Exorcist,
oh yeah.
The Exorcist, because you go spider walking down backwards down those flight of stairs.
Oh yes, that's
me. How that goes for you, Lindsay, about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the morning. Because you're going to remember that at 3 o'clock in the morning, she's going to be like running down the stairs, Ryan said there's
keep
going to be something
jumping.
cool down here.
I'm gonna be going as fast as I can. And now, like in my brain, because I'm thinking about this morning when I got up to use the bathroom and I just didn't turn on any of the lights. Now in my brain, I'm like, what if when I went to walk back out of the bathroom, my reflection just stood there and was like watching me walk out, and I didn't even know it.
Uh,
Oh, I hate this episode. Like, it's so interesting, but I also
I know it makes
I'm
you want.
so
It
creeped
does
out.
make you want to do a deep dive, though, and
Yeah.
I truly believe there are so many things out there that we do not have the understanding to comprehend yet.
Ooh.
I mean, back 500 years ago, they didn't know about radio waves, but it's a real thing, right? I'm not saying that other dimensions or time slips. I don't know. It could be a real
Yeah,
thing,
nobody knows.
and we just don't have the understanding yet. But that story.
It kind of makes you think too, because, and I don't know about you, Mom, but like all week I have been practicing so hard to see auras. I have been practicing on literally everything, on Champ, on trees outside. I have been trying so hard to see auras, and it has not happened to me. Like, it hasn't happened for me. I'm like, okay, well, maybe I'm just not concentrating hard enough. But when I you kind of have to let your eyes relax and kind of get blurry a little bit.
Yeah.
I can only do that for so long before my eyes just start like hurting. Like, not hurting, but like feeling weird, and so then I have to fix it. But it makes you wonder if, and I heard this on one of my all-time favorite movies, Crimson Peak, where one of the guys was like, they were talking about spirit photography, and one of the characters in the movie was like, well, you know how some people are colorblind and can't see specific colors, but other people can. It almost makes you wonder if some people have this other signal in their brain or something that turns on that allows them to see supernatural stuff, where the majority of people can't. Like, maybe it's genetic and we just don't know who can see it and who can't.
And they say we only use 10%. 10% of our brain. So what if somebody has that little extra that they're able to use? But after last week's episode, you're talking about auras, I think I found it on Pinterest, and it was like how to read auras. So I was like, okay, I'm going to read this. And it said that one of the what you should start with is like a light colored wall or background, and hold your hand up to it and just kind of like gaze between your fingers until your eyes, they'll focus at first on a point that's past your fingers, and then eventually your eyes will relax and you can start, and you can start seeing like some color. You'll see like a little bit of light grayish, and then you will start seeing some colors, but it takes a while. But that was the way she said this person on Pinterest said to kind of start out, and letting your eyes learn to get through that little part where they just want to like close, and they get
like I tried so hard, and it just makes my eyes feel so weird that I was like, I can't do it.
Right,
I want to be Jolie so bad, and I can't.
But it's like anything else. Like, so if it's like you're using that part of your brain that you haven't used before, the more you use it, it's like the more you're gonna, the easier the way. But yeah, that was it's fascinating. All of this is fascinating, and like you, I'm glad that we're doing this paranormal podcast. I know Ryan learned some things tonight. You can tell Lisa all about it. Tell her all about it, right?
Right.
You think she'd be freaked out?
She would act like she wasn't, but deep down, probably.
Deep down inside,
yeah. Because I mean, there's a lot of unexplainable things out there for sure. So we're gonna say goodbye to Ryan and let him go, and then Lindsay and I will sign off with some social media and next episode info. Well, he left. I was going to say bye.
No, he's like, Bye.
He's
Thanks.
like,
Good
see y'all, I'm out.
nightmare
Y'all
of a
freaked me out.
podcast. If I could like rewind in time and go back to where I was so much happier in life and I hadn't heard that last story yet.
Well, hey, just
That
convince
last one
yourself.
really.
Convince yourself, you're in a time slip and you didn't
Oh
hear it.
yeah. I'll never forget this story as long as I live. I'll
Oof.
never ever forget it. It's always going to be in the back of my brain.
I know, and I would really like to find this person and talk with her, like actually have a conversation.
I want to see like, how did your baby come out? Like, are you possessed now, or are you okay? Or is your husband still with you? Did anything else happen? Was the divorce cheap or was it expensive? Like, there's no way. There's no way.
Yeah.
God. Oh my
Well, just
God.
try not to think about it. Just put it out of your mind. Just do, yeah.
It's so easy. I'll just put it out of my mind. I'll never think about it ever again. Every time I go to the bathroom and pass
I know. Our listeners will too.
Think about this.
Yeah. How many of our listeners out there will do that too? I
Our listeners
really
just hate us now. I'm never listening to that podcast ever again. So scared.
I want them to let us know in the comments on our socials and stuff, and you take that away.
Let us know, like, if you have a creepy experience, like doppelganger wise, or if you've heard a story just over the years in passing that maybe we didn't mention. I want to know. I want to know every single doppelganger story ever, because I'm so curious about it. But here's where you can find us on our socials. We are at Sirens of the Supernatural in all major podcast places: Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, all that good stuff. And we are at Sirens of the Supernatural on YouTube as well. You can come watch us on YouTube and Apple Podcasts and watch us on Spotify too. And then we're at Sirens of the Supernatural on Facebook and Instagram. And our only one that's different is TikTok, because we are Supernatural Sirens on TikTok. But please, like we were saying, if you have any stories, email them to us. We want to know everything. I just want to know everything about doppelgangers now. Every single story ever. Time slips, alternate universes. I want to know it.
Yeah, and we will read the stories online. So
honestly, anything to help me forget the last story that we talked about.
Yeah.
If there are any positive, happy doppelganger stories out there,
yes,
please tell me so I can forget about this last one.
Right, we need some. And where do they send those stories if they want to send them via email?
To our Gmail at sirensofthesupernatural@gmail.com.
Yep, very easy to remember, sirensofthesupernatural@gmail.com. Now, before we sign off for tonight, we have got to tell you, you are not going to want to miss next Friday's episode. If you think this episode freaked you out, come back next week for an episode like none other so far. Ralph Sarchi joins us. Now, hold on, I want to get this book. He's a demonologist and former NYPD sergeant whose gripping experiences have inspired his book, and here it is, Deliver Us from Evil. There was a movie made about the book. In 2014, it was released, movie of the same name, Deliver Us from Evil. If you want to watch that in preparation for next week's episode, I can guarantee it will freak you out. Lindsay, your dad watched it with me because I didn't want to watch it by myself.
He watched it with you?
Yes. I had seen it like years ago, but I remembered liking it. And so I said, we're going to have Ralph Sarchi on. Please watch this movie with me. And he is not like you and I. He hates horror movies.
He hates it.
And it really did a number on him. So he...
Don't tell him that doppelganger story. Don't tell him.
No. Okay. Ralph Sarchi comes on and he shares his experiences with us and with you listeners. So don't miss it. Do not miss it. We had so much trouble trying to get this episode recorded to even bring it to you on the air. We finally, the third time, and we'll explain a little bit of that, on the air with him. But finally, the third time, we had some really strange things happening and going on trying to get this episode recorded. It was like Something did not want us to record it.
Yeah, and at first I was like, okay, it's just like technical difficulties. But then after the third time in a row of us
Right.
trying to record and like interview him, I was like, okay.
Yeah. And
What is-
after we're all in different places when we
Yeah.
record these episodes, and two of us had our smoke alarms going off at the same
like
time.
randomly.
And nothing would happen until our producer hit record. Everything would be perfectly,
All day.
yeah, everything
Fine,
was
all day.
great. We would be on there before trying to record. We'd be chatting. Everything, all the connections were great. No background noise, nothing. He'd hit record, and all hell would break
And
loose.
well, he would, and the thing is, like, we would start recording and it would be fine for like 5 to 10 minutes, and then
And
it's just
then-
like slowly something would start
Yeah.
happening, and then it just kept getting worse and worse and worse.
And listeners will hear some of that because I guess we got maybe about 15 minutes into the episode that we actually will air live
Yeah.
before it started happening. But,
And
we
then we
didn't
finally
we
just said, you know what, whatever.
we
We're just
acknowledged it. We're like, we're still going with it. We got to
Yeah.
get this episode recorded because our listeners need to hear this. So tune back in next Friday. We'll let you guys go. Have a great week. And as always, we will leave you with stay spooky.
And don't think about that last doppelganger.
You can hear your dad.